Why, hello everybody. Today we're gonna talk about My Hero Academia. What a surprise. No, but really though, this week is quite special because My Hero Academia had its 200th chapter, which is quite a big milestone for a lot of mangakas. Not every mangaka goes in writing a manga, drawing a manga, and expects it to hit 200. I bet a lot of people hope it does, but not all of them are fortunate enough to actually see it happen. But Horikoshi has done it. He has made it to the 200 mark, and I believe that once you reach the 200 mark, you're good to go for a while. And as it is right now, My Hero Academia doesn't look like it's going anywhere. It's pretty fucking popular. Not necessarily the most popular by any means, but it is definitely way up there. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about this chapter because it was actually quite interesting in my opinion. It's not like a groundbreaking chapter or anything, because when you hit a new milestone like 100, 200, some mangakas, like I said last week, they tend to give us something special or, give us something extra. But this time we didn't really get anything extra from Horikoshi. I don't think we did at the 100 mark either, unless I'm mistaken. So Horikoshi, he doesn't really like to do that kind of thing, I guess. Maybe he found it to be an overused concept where a lot of people just want to give you something really crazy when you hit such a milestone. But in Horikoshi's case, the only thing we really got was some special artwork at the beginning of the chapter where it says, My Hero Academia number 200, and we get, some fancy artwork of some of the students of class 1A like Deku, Bakugo, Ida, Ochako, Momo, etc. So that was quite nice still. It's something, but it's not really anything big. It's just something really small and insignificant, but still, worth noting. So starting off this chapter, we had Mushroom Girl, or as I like to call her, Toadette. Her quirk was given a little more insight, which I think was quite nice. Like, we got to find out just how this quirk can actually be used in a more effective way, which is by having higher humidity levels. Because through high humidity, apparently her quirk's mushrooms are able to spread a lot quicker and spread a lot further. It increases the range of them, apparently, the more humidity you have. And as someone said at some point in the chapter, it also increases the rate at which they grow. So not just the range, but also how fast they grow. So that was quite interesting to see. We didn't really get any sort of drawbacks from this quirk yet. I'm not entirely sure if she's going to be having any drawbacks, to be honest. We don't really know the full extent of this quirk. We do know she can grow mushrooms, but the exact properties of all of these mushrooms is something we don't quite know yet. What we do know is that she has this limitation, of course, which is the whole thing with the humidity. Certain conditions have to be met in order for her to grow them at a certain speed and at a certain rate. So, we did get something, but it's not quite a drawback. It's more of a limitation, and depending on the situation, this is gonna be something that she can probably manipulate, or at least use to her advantage in a way. I don't really think her suit has any form of gadgets that helps her with the humidity problem, because looking at her hero costume, it looks very basic. It doesn't really look like it's having any particular gadget, so unless they're hidden, I just don't see that being the case. I believe her quirk is, as far as we know at least, yes, growing mushrooms, and she has to be hoping that the humidity levels are in her favor. Now, as I said, we don't really know the exact properties of her quirk, of course, because they haven't really said exactly what these mushrooms are for entirely, although I bet these mushrooms have different properties. They all look different, right? Not all of these mushrooms will look the same, and we saw how Kurohiro was actually hiding in one of the mushrooms, which was black. So, it's not just for herself, I guess. In a way, it is actually to help everyone else too, and I think to some extent this is to serve as a distraction, but also I do believe she has some end goal in mind. I definitely think that she is up to something. I just don't quite know what it is yet. The last thing to note with her quirk is that apparently they disappear after 2 hours, so that was quite interesting to find out. There's a time limit, so you don't really have to worry about cleaning them out manually, because they will actually fade away in some way, I guess, after these 2 hours are up. Now, what's really interesting about this girl is that it is the first girl, as far as I know at least, that Mineta has had a negative opinion on, because we see at one point in the chapter where Mineta is actually, he is spectating the match as everyone else, and he's talking to a member of class 1B, and he is not a fan of this whole mushroom thing, and that is obviously when we find out that they only lasts 2 hours and stuff like that. So Mineta, he's not gonna go anywhere near this girl as far as we know, because he wasn't really pleased with what he saw from her. So I mean, that's something to note, you know. At least you know there is gonna be some type of girl that Mineta is not fond of. It's a really minor detail, it's not really a significant detail at all, but it's something that, you know, me being a Mineta fan, it's something that I noticed right away. You know, I really like Mineta, so to see him not really be a fan of a type of girl, it is something that I haven't really encountered before as far as I know. Because, I mean, I don't think we've seen him with a character like Toga before, and we don't really know how he would react to that, but this mushroom girl apparently just too much for him. Moving on to Tokoyami and Kurohiro, as I said, we didn't really get much from them because this chapter truly focused around the mushroom girl and then Momo and Kendo, so we really did not get a whole lot on the dark duo. You know, Kurohiro, he's hiding away from Tokoyami in the mushrooms that Kinoko has actually put forward, while Tokoyami, I guess he's trying to find him. You know, he's doing his best to look for him because these two have become arch nemesis in this match. Not as people, but as rivals. So obviously I want to talk about Momo and Kendo. This is something that is quite nice to see because, I mean, Momo is one of those characters that we rarely get to see any sort of development from, because I don't know why, but I guess she just hasn't had her time to shine yet, apart from at the end of term test when she was teaming up with Todoroki. So now we finally do get some more insight on Momo, which I find to be very interesting, and we also get some insight on Kendo. And before this match started, we actually saw that Kendo had a very interesting opinion on Momo in the way that she find Momo to be someone that's, I guess, a lot better than she is because she has better grades and all these kind of things, and that's why she wants to compete with her in this match. I suppose that's why she's gonna try her best to come out on top. And the student from class 1B, he obviously separated Momo and Kendo away from everyone else so that they wouldn't be disturbed. This was probably Kendo's plan all along, because she wanted to separate the one who had the brain, so to speak. You know, Momo probably was the brain of class 1A's half of that match, and by separating her from them, they have to actually fend for themselves without having the one with the highest IQ around. So I think it was a clever move, honestly, but at the same time, Todoroki mentioned something from the spectator's point of view, of course, that they misjudged it. So Kendo and Momo is gonna be a very interesting fight, because there's gonna be something we don't expect in this match, but at the same time, you know, we're gonna get some greatness from both Kendo and Momo, and that is something that I am really looking forward to, especially Momo, because Momo is one of those characters that I so far haven't really cared much about, because she hadn't really had that much focus in the series yet. Because this is one of the problems with My Hero Academia, in my opinion, is that at the beginning of the story we were introduced to an entire class of 20 people, and there's not enough time to flesh them out properly in a short amount of time. They have to really take turns, and Momo just hasn't had enough focus yet, so I am super hyped about seeing her get that. Hopefully this is her moment to become a lot more loved for the ones who didn't already like her, like myself. The last thing that I want to talk about isn't really the chapter itself, but it's to do with the length of the chapter, because this week we only got about 11 pages in My Hero Academia. It was a really short chapter. I don't think anyone can really argue with that, but a lot of people really jumped on this thinking it's to do with Horikoshi being fatigued and just him having mental problems and whatever. And I just want to really mention that, you know, just because there's a short chapter doesn't necessarily have to mean that he's undergoing phenomenal levels of stress or he's not going through some crazy mental problems. It could be, but people shouldn't really jump to conclusions and think that he's on his way to the hiatus route like Togashi, because this is what happened on Twitter a couple of days ago when we found out that the chapter was gonna be 11 pages. Everyone attacked Horikoshi, saying that he's the next Togashi and whatever, and that he's being burned out way too quickly. But some rumors actually did mention that Horikoshi may have lost an assistant recently, and that may be why he hasn't really been putting out as long chapters consistently as he usually does. Because when you're a mangaka and you're used to having assistants, when you're suddenly being put to doing everything by yourself or with fewer assistants, I don't really know if he has more than one, but if we assume that he has only one assistant usually and he loses that assistant, then he's back to doing everything on his own. You know, he has to draft it, he has to paste it, he has to ink it, and all of these kind of things, and then he has to turn it into the editor, which of course in itself is quite a stressful part of his job. You know, he has to actually follow a deadline. So I just thought I'd mention that, you know, just because things aren't as on par as they usually are, like maybe this chapter may have been a little bit subpar in the length, just don't worry about it. You know, it's gonna go back to normal. And Horikoshi did leave a comment for this chapter saying that he's going to try to go back to his usual pace. He didn't really leave any information as to why it was shorter, but you know, just thought I'd have my input because it's something that really bothered me when I saw that on Twitter. And you know, me, I don't really have that much influence on the internet, so especially not on Twitter. I mean, I have more influence on YouTube than I do on Twitter, but I definitely am not big by any means, even on YouTube, of course. So I just thought I'd really give my input. So yeah, that's all. And with that said, that's the end of this review. Chapter 200 of My Hero Academia. I hope you liked this chapter. I certainly liked it. It wasn't really like a top tier chapter or anything, but it looks like it's building up to something quite interesting with Momo and Kendo especially. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think down below in the comments about this chapter. And as always, if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everybody, Toga is waifu, Toga is laifu.